When was the last time you felt truly light? Not just in your body but in your mind, in your life? This morning, I sat cross-legged on the floor with a warm cup of tea between my hands. No background music. No phone buzzing. Just the quiet breath of the room. I looked around a single cushion, a small bonsai tree by the window, and the soft morning sun filtering through clean, white curtains. There was nothing else. And yet, I felt complete. I didn't always live this way. There was a time when my mornings began with frantic searching for keys, for clothes, for time itself. My life was full, yet I felt constantly empty. Too many tabs open in my head, too many things that didn't really matter. And slowly I began to wonder, what if peace isn't something you gain, but something you uncover by letting go? That's when minimalism started to enter my life. Quietly. Without announcement. Like a whisper. Today I want to share with you 5 subtle, yet powerful ways that simply living less has changed the way I see the world and myself. And maybe, somewhere in these gentle reflections, you'll find a part of your own story too. Every morning used to feel like a silent battle. I would open my closet and be greeted by rows of clothes, some I hadn't worn in months, some I didn't even like anymore. Drawers filled with tangled cords, forgotten receipts, bottles of half-used things I no longer needed. Yet, somehow, I told myself I didn't have time to clean it all. But that was the irony. The clutter that was supposed to save me time was actually stealing it. My mornings began with decision fatigue. What to wear, what to bring, where to put things. And somewhere in the mess, I lost something more valuable than socks or earrings. I lost the stillness of my own breath. One day, in the middle of yet another rushed morning, I paused. I looked around, and I whispered to myself, what if less could be more? So I started small, just one drawer. I kept only what I used, only what felt right. Then I moved to the next, and then the next. Not because I was trying to be perfect, but because I wanted to feel light again. And something changed. My mornings became simpler, my decisions fewer, my energy calmer. With less to choose from, I didn't feel restricted. I felt free. Free from the burden of trying to keep up. Free from the pressure to always have more. Free from the constant buzzing of just in case. You see, time isn't only stolen by distractions on your phone. It's also taken by every extra item you don't need, by every unmade decision sitting on your shelf. Clutter is not just physical. It's emotional. It weighs on you in ways you can't measure until you finally let it go. And the magic? When your space is clear, your mind starts to mirror it. You'll notice that your mornings stretch longer, not because the clock changed but because you're no longer racing against it. You'll begin to savor small moments, a quiet breakfast, the sound of your own footsteps, the way light falls on your desk. And suddenly, time isn't something you're chasing. It's something you're inhabiting. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't have to fix everything today. Maybe just start with your bedside table, or your inbox, or your closet floor. Let go of one thing, just one that no longer serves you, and watch what happens. Minimalism doesn't demand that you throw away your life. It gently asks, what do you want to keep close? When you start living with less, you begin feeling more present, more rested, more at peace with how you begin each day. Because simplicity, in the end, isn't about emptiness. It's about space for what truly matters to enter and stay. I used to think confidence came from adding more clothes, more accessories, more polish. I thought if I dressed the right way, looked the part, wore the right label, maybe people would see me as someone worth admiring. And maybe I would finally feel like enough. But there was always a quiet tension beneath it all. Even when I wore my best outfit, there was still that soft question in the back of my mind, what if this isn't really me? There was one morning I remember clearly. I had just decluttered a good portion of my closet. Not because I planned to, but because I was tired. Tired of the noise every time I opened the door. Tired of dressing for someone else. So I put on something simple, a soft, plain shirt and my most comfortable pants. And as I caught my reflection in the mirror, something happened. For the first time in a long while, I saw me. Not the costume. Not the image I had built. Just me. No distractions. No layers of insecurity wrapped in fabric. Just quiet, grounded presence. And strangely, I felt more confident than I had in months. You see, real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need sequins or attention. It's calm, rooted. It comes not from standing out but from feeling centered. When you begin to live simply, you start asking better questions. Instead of what makes me look successful, you begin asking, what makes me feel at peace? Instead of what do they think of me, it becomes, what do I think of me when everything else is silent? And that's where something shifts. You stop chasing perfection and start recognizing your own quiet wholeness. You stop performing and start aligning. Because confidence doesn't live in the expensive jacket you bought for a meeting. It lives in the moment you walk into a room knowing you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Minimalism helped me build that quiet self-trust. It stripped away the things I used to hide behind. And in their absence, I discovered something far more beautiful. The ability to be okay with being seen as I truly am. You don't need to wear minimalism as an aesthetic. You don't have to buy a new wardrobe to find yourself. Maybe, you just need to remove one mask. One layer. One expectation you never asked for. Confidence will meet you there quietly. Not as applause but as ease in your chest. As the calm you feel when you stop trying so hard to be anyone else, and finally come home to yourself. I still remember the day I bought something just because someone else had it. It was a coat. Expensive. Slick. Completely unlike me. But I had seen it in photos on people I admired, people who seemed confident, important, polished. So I bought it, hoping that maybe by wearing what they wore, I'd start to feel like they looked. But when I put it on, it didn't feel like mine. Looked good, sure. But I didn't feel at home in it. And when I stepped outside, I realized something even more unsettling. I wasn't walking to enjoy the day, I was walking to be seen. Somewhere along the way, I had started living through a lens. Worrying what others might think. Curating every little choice from what I wore to what I posted, to how my living room looked if someone came over unannounced. And it was exhausting. Minimalism didn't just ask me to clear my shelves. It asked me to clear something much heavier, the constant, invisible weight of other people's eyes. It started with a quiet question. Who are you doing this for? Was I buying that new chair because it fit my life, or because it looked good on social media? Was I planning that trip because it nourished my soul, or because it made a good story to tell? So I began choosing differently. I let go of the coat. I let go of trends that didn't speak to me. I stopped decorating my life for someone else's gaze and started shaping it for my own joy. And with every choice made honestly, I reclaimed a little freedom. You may not realize it, but we all carry expectations that aren't ours, silent scripts we inherited, roles we perform without questioning. But what if you gave yourself permission to stop performing? What if you walked into a room and didn't scan for approval but simply felt grounded in being there? What if you allowed your home to reflect your soul, even if no one ever saw it but you? What if, just once, you made a decision not because it impressed but because it felt right? The truth is, no one is watching as closely as you think. And those who aren't the ones you need to impress. Minimalism helped me turn inward, to hear my own voice beneath the noise, to live not for display but for depth. And I promise you, when you stop living for other people's eyes, you begin seeing yourself more clearly than ever. You become someone who no longer needs to be validated, because you are already enough, quietly, fully, completely, even when no one is watching. One evening, I made a simple bowl of rice. No garnish. No side dishes. Just warm, white rice in a ceramic bowl I had found at a local market. I sat by the window, the last light of the day stretching across the wooden floor. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't rush. I took one bite, then another, and something happened. I tasted it. Not just the food but the quiet, the warmth, the stillness. I felt the weight of the bowl in my hands, the gentle steam rising, the way the moment slowed down just enough for me to notice. This was enough. Before minimalism, I don't think I ever paused long enough to appreciate these details. I was always moving, always reaching for the next thing, the next meal, the next goal, the next object that would somehow make life feel more complete. But the more I began to live simply, the more I started to see. With fewer distractions, my senses softened. I began to notice the scent of clean laundry on a quiet Sunday, the sound of the kettle just before it boils, the comfort of a well-worn shirt, the way rain writes poems on the glass. These weren't just background moments anymore, they became ceremonies. When we own too much, we start to value things less. We skim over our belongings. We eat on autopilot. We fill space just to fill it. But when we pare down, when we choose with care, something beautiful returns. Awareness. And from awareness comes appreciation. You might be surprised by how sacred a cup of tea feels when it's no longer rushed. How precious a handwritten note becomes when your walls aren't crowded with clutter. How deeply you can love a single item when it's the only one you need. You don't have to throw everything away to feel this. Maybe you just begin by choosing to notice. Notice the texture of what you hold. The sound of silence between your thoughts. The way morning light slowly lifts a room. Gratitude, I've learned, doesn't arrive with grand events. It blooms in the quiet. It reveals itself in the absence of noise. And when you live with less, you start to realize you were surrounded by beauty all along. You just needed space to finally see it. So maybe today, just pause. Look around you, not at what's missing but at what's already here. The overlooked, the ordinary, the present. Because what you appreciate, appreciates. And what you cherish, multiplies in meaning. Minimalism didn't teach me to own less. It taught me to love more deeply, more presently, more truly, starting with the little things. There was a time when I believed happiness had to be earned. That it lived somewhere just beyond the next achievement, the next purchase, the next version of myself that was more disciplined, more productive, more successful. But every time I reached a milestone, the joy was brief, fleeting. Like chasing the wind, the more I ran, the farther it seemed to go. One afternoon, though, everything shifted. I had nowhere to be. No urgent emails. No plans. I made a pot of tea, sat on the floor near the window, and watched the leaves outside move gently in the wind. That moment, silent, simple, unremarkable, cracked something open. I felt content. No striving. No proving. Just being. And I realized something I had missed for years. Happiness doesn't arrive when life is finally perfect. It arrives when we stop to feel the life we already have. Minimalism gave me the space to feel it. When I began living with less, I noticed I no longer filled my calendar just to feel important. I stopped rushing through meals, through walks, through mornings, and started tasting time again. I let go of the pressure to always be doing, and gave myself permission to simply exist. And in that existence, I found small joys returning. The pleasure of an unscheduled morning. The quiet joy of a freshly made bed. The softness of evening light brushing across bare walls. When you stop chasing happiness as a goal and begin treating it as a practice, everything changes. You start to ask different questions. Not what else do I need? But what can I notice today? What already makes me smile? What can I do slower, softer, more deliberately? Happiness, I've learned, is not loud. It's not the booming voice of success or the sparkle of luxury. It's the gentle hum of presence. The stillness between two deep breaths. It's in your body when you're not trying to impress. It's in your home when it's finally quiet enough for your thoughts to settle. So if joy feels distant right now, don't try to chase it. Invite it in by clearing the space. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. You don't need a different life to feel better. You might just need less of the noise that's covering up what's already there. Let this be your reminder. Happiness doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like peace. Sometimes it looks like you sitting with yourself and being okay. And that's enough. Looking back now, I realize I didn't need a new life. I just needed space to breathe, to feel, to come home to myself. Minimalism wasn't about having nothing. It was about removing just enough to finally see everything. The freedom in my mornings. The quiet confidence of being myself. The peace that came when I stopped performing. The joy of truly tasting life, not in grand gestures, but in quiet, passing moments. And most of all, the deep, grounding gratitude that grew when I slowed down enough to notice. These 5 shifts didn't happen all at once. They happened quietly, like light moving across a room. And honestly, I'm still learning, still unlearning, still making space. But I'm no longer chasing. I'm living. And maybe if you're here, still listening, there's a part of you that's longing for that too. So let me ask you gently. What would your life feel like with just a little less, and a little more room to feel? What if you removed one object, one obligation, one old belief that no longer belongs and replaced it with presence? You don't need to become someone else to find peace. You just need to return to who you were before the noise. And maybe, just maybe, that quiet version of you has been waiting all along. Thank you for walking this path with me. If something here resonated even just a little, I hope you'll carry it with you. Not as a rule, not as a goal, but as a gentle reminder. You already have enough. You already are enough. And the beauty of life is often found in what we choose to let go.